I really want to kind of talk about, what is all this about as an independent, right? As someone that's coming from the outside looking in, and it's really you're interviewing for your next job, right? It's you
Always.
start a project and you're if you can accept the fact that you're working yourself out of that job, and treat it as an interview. I mean, what can you say about just the general attitude? It's like, some people get down on doing contract work or whatever. Like, what advice can you give for just the right attitude to have when you're working on a project?
Just stay positive and be appreciative of the opportunity. As you indicated, the last sort of your last report or your last thing you turned in is your final product, and it's what you're last remembered by. So you always want to work to the very end, to turn in, the best you can, even though you may know that you're, you're on the way out or might be on the way out. And so I've had many projects, get extended or over time just because, you know, I brought up something they weren't thinking about, or, they, it morphed into something larger over time. And I've also had projects that flat out ended when they said they were going to end. So, it happens. So you be happy, and most of the time you'll get called back, or they'll say, "Hey, we've got something else." And if you're available, great. And if not, you've probably moved on and found your next best thing because you're in demand. And so, you've got other people out there that know your skill sets and know they want you. And, you're in the free agent market, you're going to go to the next opportunity.
It's all about, I guess, really boils down to just generating value, whether it be, on in the bigger picture for the job or just as a participating member of a team, you know, um, you don't want to float through because the job's going to end either with you or without you. You know?
Yeah, you want to be the most efficient in adding value person on the team, and you don't have to be the team lead to be doing that in a project, or you don't have to be, um, the best of everything, there, but you do want to be remembered as somebody that is, heads down, moving the ball forward, solving problems, and making the hurdles where they need to be made in the time. And so, those are the things that people look back for and look back and say, "Hey, yeah, he's a great person to do." And you want to be reliable, reliability and consistency. You may not always give the answer that a client wants in something, and they may not like it, but at least one thing I have learned is they know you're objective, you're fair, and you're looking out for them on both sides, whether it's positive or negative. Hey, here's something that's going to help you, or here's something that you need to watch out for as you're doing this. And so those are the things. I did a project some years back, and, um, we had identified a bunch of, drilling obligations that were happening, and client kind of knew it. Um, but they didn't know the extent of it. And, that whole idea, just bringing that up, morphed into us having to look at, uh, all the drilling obligations, which was sort of a side project. And then it morphed into things I did in my past career, where I took um, a checklist for a drilling schedule. I took a drilling schedule and I took a checklist of all the things that need to happen before you spud that rig, from a landman's perspective, from the land department's perspective. So I have a list of 25 some odd things that have to happen before my driller can say, "Are you ready to spud?" And I turn that into a drilling schedule. And so I said, "Hey, you're telling me you're going to drill the Broussard number one on this date. That's when I'm targeting to have my checklist of things done. And so I'm not working on anything else but the Broussard number one. And after that, I'll work on the next well." And so I would give them my schedule of things I was doing, and they could see what I'm working on. Operations can see what I'm working on and what my team's working on. That was my order. And if something changed from their perspective, then they needed to come let me know. And so we turned that project into, we created that list for a client and gave them 2 years of drilling obligations. And then what we knew was done in that checklist. And so we gave them, for every well, and it was for every unit, a well that needed to be drilled in a unit, we gave them the items that we thought were done in that checklist, and then gave them a 2 year drilling obligation list. So one of the things that what evolved out of, again, managing up, hey, you don't know you need this, but you're telling me you're concerned about drilling obligations. We're going to help you out a little further, and we're going to give you the things that your team's going to need to get ready to drill these wells over the next 2 years.
Yeah. Well, you establish trust that, created value. And oftentimes you're exactly right. It happens so often, you get into something, you're working through it. Maybe you had an initial objective, but as you work through that, you start identifying, what about this? What about that? And that asking those questions sometimes requires you to get outside of your comfort zone a little bit. It's like, hey, I'm
Totally.
here for a task, but speak up, create value, understand, get outside the comfort zone of your project, understand what your skill set is and what you're confident about. And, just ask the questions. Hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? If you do that, and most
And
often,
that whole project transcended into, next thing I know, I got project engineers calling me, looking through my list, and I'm now outside of my landman comfort zone, and not so much mine, because I'm working in-house, you're dealing with all disciplines, but it's part of that aspect that you're not just always dealing with landman. So you've got to understand that lingo a little bit. It's a little harder as a true consultant, but you do want to familiarize yourself with those sort of things. And so then, when you got engineers calling you now and you're having to talk their lingo and tell them, hey, here's what I no, here's what I know. Here's the number. Here's the count, because they're then converting all that data you're giving them into their reports, into their forecasting and their budgeting. And they're doing the same thing you did on the front end of the project. They're now doing on the development on the project, and they're using your information. So it goes to show the vitalness and the importance of what the land department and the land guys are doing on the front end, to where that transcends through the whole department and all the different disciplines. And so you want to get out, back to kind of some of the first points we made, you want land to be your second nature. You're doing that with your eyes closed. You can direct that with your eyes closed. And then you want to be able to learn new things, get out of your comfort zone, to do more things, so that as you're doing those, you become more valuable to an organization, and they know that, hey, yeah, he's a landman, but he does know what the rest of the group and the rest of the company and the rest of the departments do. And so by having the ability to build your reporting around that mindset, that it's not just being looked at by landmen, it's being looked at by other disciplines throughout an organization. You want to be able to do that and build your reporting to where, if you're giving it to a land person, it's going up the ladder, and an engineer can understand it, an accountant can understand it. They don't like to see a lot of fluff. They don't want to see all the land fluff. They like charts and graphs and bar charts and, things that move. And so, that gets back to your technical skills, that your reporting should be dynamic. It should be evolving as you progress. And so as new data comes in a spreadsheet, and you have that tracking mechanism, you want your charts to move as you're updating. And so that when you're going in and meeting and your person's dropping in at the last minute saying, hey, yeah, I got 10 minutes, give me an update, that you can go flash that update up there and say, hey, here's where we were yesterday. Here's where we are today. We made great progress. We're on par, or we're a little bit behind, or whatever the story is. But then they can take that sheet, and if you want them to, and you do it right, you build it where they can extract it, pop it into a PowerPoint, and bam, they're off and running. And again, you've done the work that your clients that needs, and they don't have to re-massage the data. It's, you can, and that's part of working together with a client too, is, hey, how do you want to see this? How does everybody up the ladder want to see it? What makes it clear to not just you, but to everybody in the organization so that everybody understands the same thing and your client's not having to recreate the wheel of the work that you do.